we don't lead, when we don't hold them accountable and we allow them to have negative impacts on their own success without identifying for them that that's what they're doing. So, when we look at this at the next level down, there's tons of things that we could look at that might help us kind of, chip away the trust that the client might have with us, things that we shouldn't be doing. Now, this is probably an inexhaustive list. There's probably an infinite number of things that we can put here, and that's not really the point that we want to talk about. What we want to actually talk about is the fact that if you stand back and look at trust from a big picture perspective, the things that we need to focus on as consultants is that we should always be taking the high road. Now, again, this is kind of like a bit of an abstract saying, so we want to give some shape to it. So when we say always take the high road, what does that actually mean? And what it means to me is that as a consultant, you're being paid to do a job. And when you go to that job, there's only one way that you want to do that job, and that is to the highest level that you know possible. This is the way we do it. Now, when we were actually building our methodology for Cirrus One, we decided to call it the way. We didn't know that the Mandalorian was going to immortalize that kind of saying. But the general thing was, this is the way that we do projects. And it is the way because it gets results. And so this is how we do it. Now, the general idea is we're holding this up as the sacrosanct way that we actually do work. Doesn't matter what you purchase from us. This is what we're doing. We're doing it to the best of our ability. Oh, you don't have the money to do it this way, or you don't have the time to do it this way? Okay, well then you might agree to let us step down a little bit, and now we're going to do it this way. And this way is substandard to this way, but you're agreeing that you want to do it because you don't have the time and money to do it the right way. And that is how we end up agreeing with the client to do things maybe to a lesser degree of quality than we typically would have done. We agree with them that they don't have the time or the budget to do it the way that we want. And as a result, we will take their guidance and go down to a lower road. We always get permission to go to a lower road. Otherwise, the way that we do our job is to always do it to the best of our ability. This works very, very effectively. This is how we do it, guys. I need this, I need this, I need this. I need you to go do that. This is going to take this long. That's what's going to happen. Oh, you can't afford to do it that way. Okay, that's fine. Here's what we can do instead. Is that okay? Do you accept, right? This fits along with our prescriptive escalation approach. Do you accept the consequences of the fact that you don't have the money to do it in the preferred way? So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a custom way that is going to be slightly different than what we prefer. That's okay, but now we're agreeing with the customer that we're going to drop down. That's what it means to be trustworthy. If you were to just begin to do things in the custom way without telling the customer any of this, then we have actually broken their trust because they're thinking that this is our preferred way. They think this is preferred because you didn't explain to them that it was custom. And so now when they realize that they did not get the result that they want, or they get a result that's substandard in comparison to something else, they believe you misled them. That's how trust works. The customer expects that while you're talking to them, you are guiding them to the highest road possible that you know how to take. And if you're ever going to take a lower road, you get their permission to do it, or you ask them to pay the price of what it takes to get them to the highest road possible. That's the way that we negotiate, and that's the way that we deal with service delivery. All right, guys, that's it. So in summary, you will be judged by the amount of quality that you deliver. So plan on behaving and displaying these traits as you deliver your service. It doesn't need to be completely subjective. We can actually work on these traits. Am I delivering the FAAST attributes right now? Quality is about making the right decision right now as you deliver the service. Now, before we move into the case study, I want you to give you the skill step assignment. What we want to do here is identify an opportunity to hold the customer accountable. We want to hold them accountable to do what it is that they need to do to move the project forward. Let's go do that. Now, we might layer in with that a little bit of prescriptive escalation, right? Prescribing to see what happens, but go hold a customer accountable. What you're going to find is most customers, they're okay with being held accountable. They might complain a little bit, but they know that the project's ability to be successful relies on them actually engaging. So if you have an opportunity to do that, go and hold a customer accountable. Now, I want to go back now and let's do the discussion group. Here's what we want to do. We want to grab the discussion, the case study, the same one we've been using all the way through here, CNC, medical factory, whatever it is, with the V4 guys, and they're implementing their CRM project. So identify on that project an opportunity or occasions where elements of our quality measures, focus, accountability, attention to detail, skills, and trustworthiness, were missing. What were the natural consequences of those elements missing? So just go find one or two, just one would do, that you can come back and talk about. But then what I want you to do is I want you to also focus on another question, which is what attribute would you add to FAAST, right? Attribute or behavior would you add to FAAST? And if we can do that, you'll come back and you'll have something that you think is just as important as focus, accountability, attention to detail, skills, and trustworthiness. So let me draw up the groups here and we can get moving. Okay, groups. I don't even think we need that many. Let's do that. Yep, excellent. All right, we'll just 3 groups. Come back at 9:47 and we'll have plenty of time to round this discussion out and get on with our day. Really appreciate it, guys. Any questions? Actually, let me take the screenshot so that you have this. I actually do think this works pretty well. Let me paste this in here for you. Okay, so now you have the screenshot with the extra question in it. Go find opportunities in the case study for us to where FAAST was missing. What were the natural consequences? But then also talk about what is it that you would add to FAAST to make this even more useful. Ready, set, go. All right, so let's look at what we came up with here. Group 1, which was Farzan, Jakub, Leherzad, and Milan. What did you guys come up with?
And some examples.
Yes, so identify a moment when we were missing an element of quality FAAST in the case study.
That was in the middle of page 2. It says Michael was soon having a difficult time getting support from some of the operating divisions. When the divisions failed to deliver to a specific request for information on time, Michael would get stressed and request that V4 Corporation do the right thing and invest in the project's success by helping him work with the teams to get the necessary information. While Michael reported some of the project's issues to his COO, he seemed to always play down his failure to control the team and shifted the focus to V4's lack of progress. So one example we saw, especially in that last sentence, is lack of trustworthiness and lack of accountability.
On who do you think in that instance? Who was actually not acting in a trustworthy way there, do you think?
Playing his own involvement in this.
Yeah. And it's funny.
Was the chief operating officer?
Yep. Right. He wasn't involved and he wasn't focused. But I think that particular segment is drawing on something that customers like to do a lot. And it comes down to how we want to allow the communication within a project to work. And what happens is the project is communicating at this level. And we have a project manager here, and we have a project manager on our side here. And this is us as the service provider, and this is the customer. So what we do is we kind of send them information. And we know, especially a lot of times, that information at some point is also going to go up their chain to the sponsor. But the thing that we don't do is we don't exert any control over this message. And we basically just allow the PM to recast that information in whatever light they want. Now, if we don't also have our sponsor become a witness to this, or at least checking in with this sponsor, then we never realize what this person is doing. And this can be very difficult to manage, right? It's very difficult to kind of monitor how this does. Now, there's one way of doing it. You just make sure that everything you send to the project manager, you also send to the sponsor. But you'd be careful, because sometimes that could be seen as inundating the sponsor and they just don't want all that communication. But I do believe that sponsors on projects should receive all the communications, right? That's what they should know. So at least it's crossing their desk, right? Because that's the person who we want to know what they think. But of course, it could be considered too much information. But generally, what you want to make sure that's happening is that you also have our sponsor checking in with this person, so that when this project manager goes back and says, yeah, the V4 process is like terrible, then this sponsor will say, hey, look, why is your process so bad? I got my project manager telling me that's terrible. And you go, oh, really? Okay, well, let me investigate, and I'll go find out, and I'll go talk to our project manager. And then we actually come back and say, yeah, no, as we've explained, and this is maybe where you do then send that person something, right, that says, this is what's happened. And you call this person out for miscommunicating whatever it was. It's a difficult issue to solve, but it's definitely something that impacts our ability to deliver a quality service, which is when we're getting harpooned by this resource over here. Now, what attribute would you add to FAAST? Did your team come up with something that you would add to FAAST? What did you guys think was missing from FAAST?
Yeah, Lara, Sip.
Yes, so we thought that advisory for the service here is missing, which doesn't fit in any of these.
Yep, advisory. That's funny. It's exactly what the group yesterday said.
Oh.
The first group that went yesterday said exactly the same thing. Advisory. Good one. All right. Group 2, which is Bronislav, David, JT, and Peter. What moment did you guys identify in the case study that was missing FAAST?
Yeah, I had 3 of them, so I'll just pick one here. So we thought there was a bit about trustworthiness issue when Jenny was getting a bit of a spat with Michael, and she just emailed Michael's manager directly, basically embarrassing him.
Yep. So that's interesting, right? Trustworthy, or do you think Michael had it coming, right? Now, it depends on how you want to look at this. It's not a good way to do it, but what would have been a better way to do it? So my point is, I think at some point we had to call this out, but what would have been the right way to call this out rather than do it the way that Jenny did it, right? And you're 100% right. She did it the wrong way in that it was done in kind of like an untrustworthy manner. But how should we or could we have dealt with this the right way earlier?
I mean, getting in front of it, there's several things here that they probably could have gotten in front of that obviously helps, having a difficult conversation early sort of thing. But there's clearly a misalignment. I mean, start from the very beginning, because like the other thing we had about even Michael running like the scoping workshops without Jenny there, like that, things like that. It should have been nipped in the bud basically at the start. It allowed it to carry on for too long, which just made it worse and worse and worse until it became a point when it was going to explode basically.
Yeah, and the problem that we've got in this, and so you picked on kind of like, the trustworthiness that we kind of didn't act within in this example, but the reason that Jenny ends up kind of acting this way, if you kind of read the subcontext as we go through, she acts this way because she was unable to actually keep him accountable to the impact that he was having on the project. And that's because we didn't proactively escalate or even reactively escalate some of the issues to the chief operating officer and say, hey, look, this guy, Michael, he doesn't have enough time. He isn't skilled. He's taking on tasks, right? We never really asked Michael to be accountable, right? And I think that the right way, and what you're pointing out, JT, is that, to go straight to the COO and kind of do this stuff, that's a little bit, can seem untrustworthy, because what we usually want to do is want to say to Michael, hey, look, this is what I need from you and you're not delivering it. And we really need you to kind of pick your socks up here. So please do that. And then if he doesn't do that, then you get your sponsor to raise this with their sponsor, right? These issues are always best dealt with sponsor to sponsor. And whenever somebody does that kind of like jumping the shark type thing where I'm going to like, just send the message over here, right? It tends to look like it's not acting in a trustworthy manner. And, you got to have some empathy for Jenny, I guess, in this situation, but she kind of is the architect of her own demise, right? Because what she wasn't able to do was to hold Michael and the client accountable previously up until that point. So to be honest, she is the architect of the fact that we're in this situation. And so then she knee-jerk reacted in an untrustworthy manner. So completely agree. Good pickup. What would you add to FAAST as your additional trait or behavior?
So, I mean, you have skills there, which could mean that's a very big bucket, right? That could mean lots of things. But the thing that we were latching on in particular was social skills or communication skills, like something around social communication.
Yeah, communication. Yeah. It's funny, the group 2 yesterday came up with communication, but they came up with communication, persuasion, kind of like a whole bunch of Asian type words. But yep. Communication, right? I totally agree. I think the first one, there's 2 that come up commonly that I think that we don't have in FAAST that are important. And like you said, communication could be considered a skill, right? And we could consider that a consulting skill. So that's why we're trying to focus on it and teach it. But you're right. I mean, I think it's pretty pivotally important. Group 3, which was everybody remaining, Ali, Jenna, Jim, Yuri, and Peter. What did you guys come up with respect to a third addition or to FAAST that you guys would add just as we run out of time here?
We came up with integrity as the addition to it. And this might, of course, look like it's crossing over against trustworthiness, but we think that you can build trustworthiness without having integrity. I mean, you just need to convince someone that what is going on is the way it's actually looking. Whereas I think Michael, who has become the kind of a usual suspect in this dialogue, was indeed downplaying his failures to the COO. And would he have just taken the difficult conversation early, this might have gotten the attention it should have a lot earlier.
Yeah, I like it. Integrity. So that's a good one. And that has been raised, reasonably frequently. So I'd say the number one, and then what also gets raised that is potentially missing, and people have brought this up, is leadership, right? And, it, like JT was showing before, you can kind of say, well, leadership is a part of being focused, or you could say that that's a skill. You could say that a skill is communication. You could say integrity is trustworthiness. I mean, there's a lot of ways in which you can kind of look at this. But like I said at the beginning, the point is not necessarily how perfectly accurate this is. The point of this is that if we put attention to how we're behaving now, we have a template that we can do a quick checklist that says, am I doing these things? Throw in whatever you think is also important, communication, integrity, or leadership, and say, how are we doing? We're doing okay because we're delivering these things. If that's a pattern of behavior that we can develop, that will increase the level of quality we're actually able to deliver to our clients in any given circumstance. So start trying to think, apply it to what you're doing. And like you guys have pointed out, focus and accountability are the 2 major ones here. If we can stay focused, if we make sure that the people that we're dealing with are accountable and that we're accountable, the project is actually going off in a good direction. But that's how we deliver a quality service. Guys, thank you so much for your time. I realize we're a minute over. I do appreciate it. and we'll post this up onto the portal as soon as we can and get this out to the rest of the organization. So thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it. 2 weeks time, we're going to do principle number 6. Great stuff, guys. Well done. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Shane. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.